Well, today we're in the wonderful kitchen of Lugean Hogan, my wonderful wife, and she does some legendary sweet rolls. They're actually sourdough rolls, and everybody wants to know the process involved. And it's a fairly simple process, but it involves several steps. And today she's going to kind of walk you through one of the steps, and I'll come back later tomorrow or tonight and do another step and the final steps, and ultimately you'll see the final product. And I think you're really going to like what you see, and maybe you'll learn how to do something. Here we go. So Lugean, what are you doing?
Okay, I'm making sourdough cinnamon buns and some plain sourdough rolls. So this is what I do. I made my dough this morning, so I've had that rising for the last 6 or 7 hours. So now, and I put that in the oven with the light on to get it to rise pretty. So now I'm going to make my buns, and then I'll let them rise again. So first I dump my dough on my floured surface, divide each piece. I do a double recipe. So I divide each piece into 3 pieces, and that gives me the good portions for each of my pans. So to start with, I'm going to make 1 pan of just plain rolls, sourdough rolls. So I knead those. Just kind of move them around a few times back and forth, and that's a nice elastic dough. And then I just pinch off my rolls, pop them in the pan, and try to.
I notice you don't knead them very long. Is there?
Well, I mean, long enough just to make a nice elastic dough.
Is it a problem if you over knead them?
Well, yeah, they might get a little tough. So you just want to get them a nice elastic, and you want a smooth surface. I mean, that's probably the hardest thing. People have trouble getting a nice smooth surface, but you know, after you do it a little while, it just comes together. So, and I dip a little flour on the top. So each time you go, you're kneading it a little bit more. So you don't want to do a lot at first, because then they're going to get tough. So you make them whatever size you want to. Sometimes I make little bitty ones if we're having a cocktail party and just need some small ones. Sometimes I make bigger ones if they're a dinner roll. It just depends what the need is. So I'm going to just stick those, and I need one more little piece. So I'm just going to steal a piece off of that piece of dough because I didn't have quite enough in that pan. I'm going to fill up my pan. So I just knead it around a little bit, and there we go. So there's my pan of plain rolls.
Film through the whole thing.
Okay, so next is my cinnamon buns, and you don't need the dough much, because if you do, it gets so elastic that you can't press it out to make a nice rectangle to put your ingredients on. So I just press out all of my dough on a good floured surface, and sometimes I'll flip it over another time just to get a nice side on the other side, so when I roll them up, they're pretty on the outside. Although it doesn't make any difference, really. So it's just my way of doing it. Okay, so here we go. I've got all my pieces pressed out, and now I'm going to do a little butter on each piece. So I've got my butter softened, and I'm just going to spread, and a lot of times you just have to do it with your hands, but you just want soft butter, and you want to be able to spread a piece or so on each one, because that's going to give you a little moisture so that the cinnamon and sugar kind of gets a little bit gooey. So you just spread that out.
Now sometimes you use the pre-softened. Yeah.
Yeah, I sometimes use the squirt margarine, but I like butter.
We like butter.
We like butter. Notorious for butter use. So this works good. So after you've got that spread out a little, we're then going to put our toppings on. So okay.
How many rolls does each one of those make?
Well, I'll probably cut them into 6 to 8. It depends on how big the rolls are. So, I mean, when you roll them up, you can make them as big as you want. I use these disposable pans because they're nice to give to people. So I use those, although you can make them in a 9 to 13 pan or whatever you want, and you can make them where they spread out. They don't have to be as close in together as these make them, but they make a pretty pan of rolls to give. So a handful, I just put a handful of brown sugar on each one, spread it out, simple and easy. And probably the thing that makes mine a little bit different than a lot of cinnamon buns that you buy is the amount of cinnamon that I put on them. I'm very generous with the cinnamon. So I buy my supplies at Sam's Club and I use a lot of cinnamon.
That is a lot.
Can you see? I know everybody thinks that's too much, but that's what makes them really, really good, is a lot of good cinnamon flavor. And you know cinnamon's good for you.
That's right.
So these are healthy cinnamon buns. They've got butter, which is now determined to be good for you. And of course brown sugar, nothing wrong with that, all natural. And then lots of good healthy cinnamon. Okay, so after getting all your cinnamon and sugar and everything on, now I'm going to roll them up. So you just start from the far side and bring them to you, and I kind of pull them up a little bit and then slide them around and get them ready to cut. Okay. So there's, now one loaf I'm going to make just as a cinnamon bread loaf. So I'm just going to pop that right in my loaf pan. Sometimes I make little bitty loaves in the little aluminum pans to give away, and especially at the holidays. But the cinnamon buns, that's what everybody wants because I'll ice them. So I've got 4 pans ready to go, and I cut them with dental floss. Makes it so easy, and it's just...
Does it matter what kind of dental floss you
I don't
use?
think it matters what kind of dental floss you use. I don't use mint. I just use dental floss. So you just cross and cut.
That's how long have you been doing it that way?
Oh,
With the dental floss?
years and years. I don't know. It's been a long, long time. I don't remember. I've been making the sourdough bread for over 30 some years, since my children were in school.
And that's the original starter?
This is the original starter.
And how old is that then? 35 years?
35 years or
Really?
so. Yeah. So you just put them in your pan, however many fit, and I just try to make a nice little pan full. And you just pop those in and let them rise again for another 6. I'll put them in the oven with about the light on in the oven, and let them stay there for about, I'd say maybe another 6 hours. So before I go to bed tonight, I'll bake and I'll ice them, and that'll be our last step, other than eating them, which is the best part. Okay, I think usually, lately I've been getting about 7 in each pan, and it makes a really pretty full pan of buns when they rise up and bake. And you see sometimes the rolls are a little bigger. I try to get them uniform, but it is what it is. now in the oven to rise for about 6 hours before we'll bake.
So what you're doing now is it's 3 o'clock. These things will rise until 9 o'clock tonight. This is a standard procedure at the Hogan house, but she's always either rolling them out, getting them ready, waiting on them to rise, or the final step you'll see later is icing them up. So you're going to come back tonight at 9 o'clock?
Well, about 8:30, 9 I'll bake, something like that. I'll keep an eye on them. When they've risen enough, I'll bake, ice them, and package them up. Then I usually put them in the freezer or take them to work or somebody.
So we'll see you in about 6 hours.
That'll be right.